Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John. As always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. Eerie places that shouldn't exist. People give their stories of what they were like. Please remember to like, share, comment, hype, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. By my hometown, there was a hiking trail that people went to very infrequently. It was along the side of the Niagara Escarpment, so it had some climbable cliffs and some very shallow caves that you could crawl around on. I went with some friends when I was 19 to 20, and we were crawling around and found a cave that went pretty deep. We had never been in there before, and had never even seen it before, so we pushed forward and decided to check it out even though we had no flashlights. And this was when cell phones didn't really have a flashlight function. We stepped into the cave, and it was easily 20 to 30 degrees cooler than outside. Upon looking around with the light we had, we noticed it was really clean inside the cave, as in it didn't have beer cans littered everywhere like all the other small caves did. While in there, we got a really eerie feeling about being in there shortly, hearing weird and strange things, feeling like we were being touched, poked, and pulled, and not having any way to figure out who was doing it too. It was too dark. We were just using lighters to see what was around us. We were convinced one of us was messing with the others, although anytime we sparked up a lighter, we were all decently far apart. We decided to hightail it out of there after only a few minutes, convinced to come back with the flashlights. We came out to see that it was now dusk outside. When we entered, it was midday. Somehow, we had lost roughly 3 hours inside of this cave. We went back with flashlights the next week, but I've never been able to find this cave again. When I was about 12, my mom and I were traveling cross-country to move. We were staying the night in Missouri, at a typical roadside hotel next to an Applebee's, so we went in for dinner. It was packed despite us being one of only a couple of guests at the hotel, so we sat up at the bar. We noticed something weird after a few seconds. Every single person had a glass of milk in front of them. Even the dudes around the bar. Nothing else. Just a tall glass of milk. Someone opened the fridge under the center bar, and we saw just gallons of milk. The bartender took our dinner order and brought us each a glass of milk without us asking for anything to drink. It was so fucking weird. My mom told me not to drink it. On our way back to our room, my mom stopped at the front desk and asked the woman working there, half jokingly and half concerned, why everyone drinks so much milk in this town. The woman said she had no idea what she was talking about, and we just moved on. When we were putting our leftovers in the mini fridge up in our room, there were like 10 mini cartons of milk, no brand, just the word milk in black lettering. It was a weird place, and I've never been able to figure it out. So growing up, my parents were divorced. My dad lived on a decent chunk of land with a house in front. The backyard was a field surrounded by trees and woods on 2 sides and an open pasture on the other. So, in the woods behind the house, there was this little river that my brother and I would play in, and we had a pretty good path there. We even dug steps into the side of the hill, so we mainly stayed there, but sometimes would go down river by where it opened up into the field next door. Well, one day we decided to go deeper into the woods instead of down the river. So we take our little day packs and head off. The brush was real thick, and it was really slow going. So eventually my brothers are like, "This, I'm out," just because it was too thick and starting to turn into a swamp. Well, I keep going. Probably about a mile away from the river, I find this concrete pillar surrounded by trees and shit. So I did what any young kid would do and climbed up it. It was probably 8-ish feet tall, so it wasn't too hard. Well, on top of this pillar, there was a hole with metal rungs going down. I take out my flashlight and jump on in because why not? I got to the bottom, which felt like maybe 6 or 7 feet below ground. I could fully stand up, but didn't have much headroom. And it was a concrete room. I looked around, and it looked like it was well used. A dirty sleeping bag, empty canned foods, candles, some yard ornaments that were stolen from us a few years prior, some books, and a CD player. Freaked me the f*** out, and I noped out real quick. It felt like I was being watched the whole way back to the river. Didn't tell anyone because I was a kid and never went back. We eventually stopped playing by the river because it started sinking like sewage really bad. We're pretty sure the neighbor was dumping shit near the river, and it was seeping into the ground and water. In the 7th grade, I had a friend that lived near a beach on a bay of Lake Michigan. One day in early May, it reached 70 degrees, nearly unheard of for that time of year in northern Wisconsin. My two friends, including the beach friend, excitedly rode our bikes down the beach to maybe dip our toes in, expecting still frigid waters and then tan for the rest of the afternoon. The water, though, was surprisingly warm, like bathwater warm. In this particular area of the bay, the water was shallow for about half a mile out, and we joyously splashed around, wading deeper and deeper until we were about chest deep. As we dunked each other and swam with abandon, I started to feel sick, bad headache, nausea, wobbly. Just then my other two friends mentioned they also felt sick. We headed back to the shore, nearly crawling by the time we got out. The three of us collapsed under a tree and fell asleep for 2-ish hours. When we woke up, we talked about how weird it was. I dipped my toe back in the water and it was freezing cold. To this day, I have no idea what was in there. I do know that there's a chemical plant in town that used to manufacture things like Agent Orange, and that their practices were known to be less than environmentally conscious. I have never touched that water since. 10 years ago, my friend and I were bored one night and were driving around. We were on a highway in New Jersey about 30 minutes from our houses and thought the trees in the middle of nowhere. We saw this beautiful, freshly paved cement pathway with lampposts every 100 feet just lighting this pathway up. It was beckoning us, and so we found the nearest exit. We drove around for a while through darkness until the road came to a dead end and the path began. We got out and started walking on this path through the trees and these beautiful wide open fields until eventually it ended at a little small town after a couple of miles. At this point it's like 2 a.m. and in a small town like this, nothing should be open except for this pizzeria, which is odd, so we go in. It is empty except for the older gentleman behind the counter. We order and start eating. Then another older customer walks in. The gentleman behind the counter and this customer do a double take at each other and then smile. Both of them run around the counter and embrace. Mario? Stefano? Has it been 40 years? They talk the whole time about their childhood and growing up back in Italy. We think, what are the chances we would be here at this moment, seeing friends reunited after 40 years? Just plain odd. My friend and I, we finish up and we head back down to the brightly lit path and back to the car and call it a night. Ever since that night, my friend and I have tried to find that brightly lit path, but to no avail. We haven't seen it since from the highway or driving down that road. In the small town, the pizzeria is there, but it closes at 10 p.m., so there is no explanation why it would be open at 2 a.m. Just plain odd, and something we never could explain, experiencing an unlikely moment to watch friends be reunited after 40 years. Hey guys, John here. Just hope you're enjoying the stories today. Here in my den or living room, only a small sliver. Actually painted that for the house. I don't know why. But just want to say hello, and I've been reading the comments. One of the people, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name right now, I'll shout out tomorrow, was mentioning that they're trying to tell their fellow Australians to listen one day at a time, and it's really appreciated. I mean, obviously this community, we survived a pretty big hack about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, and you guys stuck with us, and we appreciate it. So anyway, yeah, just keep giving you guys good content. I would hope to it, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks again, guys. Take care. About 6 years back, my mom and brother and I took a road trip from SoCal to Seattle. We stopped at a couple places along the way to make it a long trip. On the way back, we were driving through Oregon, and it started snowing. It's about midnight, so we decide to get a room, spend the night, and head back out in the morning. We see this really ugly sign off the freeway saying hotel next exit. So I take the exit and head up. It goes up a hill and back down, and it's just a huge clearing. Small little hotel. There are cars there, and it looks full. It's like a bunch of bungalows all closed off and split into rooms. The cars are all parked in front of the rooms except for like one room. I go up to the middle bungalow door where it says office. I walk in. Some guy comes out the back and he was obviously sleeping, and I had woken him up. I ask for a room and he says, "Hold on, man. Let me handle something in the back real quick." The guy lets out this massive, gnarly fart. Stars low and ends high. Pretty sure he had to wipe after that one. I start laughing, and he walks back in and gets mad I'm laughing. Gives me the key, and my mom and bro all go to the room for the night. The next morning it's about 7 a.m., and we hear people outside the room. It's loud, and there are a lot of people. I look out the window and no one is there. Not a single person, but we can still hear them. We got ready and left at about 7:30 in the morning. We can still hear people but don't see anyone. We walk outside and it's nothing but old cars parked there, rusted out, some sitting on cinder blocks, some with no windows. I go to the office and a different guy than the gnarly fart guy is there. He keeps asking if we're sure we don't want to stay another night. I say no, and we get in the car and remember we saw a McDonald's like an exit or two back. So we backtrack, get breakfast, and start heading back home. On the way back, we pass a sign that says, "No facilities for the next 20 miles," or something like that. We don't see the bootleg sign we had seen the night before. After that, we made sure we only stayed at big motels off the freeway. Where I live, there's an abandoned mental hospital, for real. It's so creepy, and until very recently, there was no real security on the property. Right now, they're going through asbestos removal so they can implode it though. I worked fairly close to it, so one night I told my coworkers I was going to walk home and took the long path through the woods. If you parked at the businesses near it, they would usually call the cops. I got into an auxiliary building, and it was the creepiest shit ever. I'm a big fan of the game, Outlast, so it felt like stepping straight into that. I then ventured further to the main building and the auditorium. I was wearing a mask and stuff, so the asbestos and dust didn't kill me. It was crazy. The thing is, it's recently-ish abandoned, like 2004, I think. So it's all modern architecture and everything seems eerily new. There's graffiti and such, of course, but it really feels like one day everyone just up and left and never returned. Every single time I looked down a hallway, I felt like there was someone or something there. There's a series of tunnels under the city that lead to this hospital. I tried to go down there, but my planned escape route had been backfilled, probably to prevent people like me from entering. So I went back up and walked back through to my work and caught an Uber home. On the way out, I was accosted by a bunch of cops. Evidently, they had some cameras and such out there. They take trespassing really seriously. I showed them my Florida ID and said I was a temporary resident and lost my dog. I had no clue about the history of the place and just searched the woods. They believed me and sent me on my way. Near where I live, there's a little town called Ridgeview Park. My friend was talking to a new girl and we were scoping out where she lived so he wouldn't get lost in his upcoming date when we took a wrong turn. After a slight decline, the road sharply rose until we crossed some train tracks and were met with a fence about 20 feet tall made of wood pillars about the size of telephone poles. There was a gate that was open, so we drove in. Once inside, there's a single loop that winds through the whole complex, only wide enough for one car, one way in, one way out. In the middle sits a large dome church. The houses that surround it are all square, two-story homes painted brightly in strange colors. There is a drained community pool off to one side with grass growing in the basin. Lined up along the very back of the loops are 50 to 70 single-car garage doors. all right next to each other. No house appears to have their own. It was strangely quiet, and as we drove past the homes, residents would step outside and watch us. The loop isn't too large, and we eventually made our way around and exited through the gate. And some people walked closer, watching us leave. Haven't seen anything else like it. Their website is password protected and their Facebook page is private. The part you can see, it is a summer community that started off as a Methodist camp and still has religious services, and that they only sell homes to members of the family. Such a creepy vibe to the whole place, and we try to drive through at least once a year when the gate is open. Many years ago, a friend and I decided to visit our mutual friend at her university and spend the weekend with her. We had extremely detailed directions to follow, and we were told the trip should take about 3 hours. While nothing went wrong on our drive, it seemed to take forever. I don't remember exactly at what point the woods started, but I do remember traveling through these woods for a long time, perhaps an hour. We were already well past the 3-hour time frame my friends had given us by the time we left the woods. When we finally reached my friend's college town, it had been nearly 4.5 hours since we'd left. We didn't get lost. We never hit traffic or stopped for more than a few minutes, but we quickly forgot about it since we were happy to spend the weekend with our friend. When the trip back was a little over 3 hours, we thought it was weird but didn't think much of it at the time. It wasn't until my next trip to visit that I realized someone had been strange. I spent the whole next trip waiting for the long path through the woods that we had been on the first time, but it never appeared. Following the same directions as the first time, the entire trip took me about 3 hours, as did every other trip I made out there in the following years. I don't know what happened, and I've never been able to replicate it. I still wonder what happened and where we really were when passing through those woods. In northern Ohio, 23,000 acres are devoted to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. One fine, hot, humid Ohio day some decades ago, before cell phones and GPS, etc., I went out for a day hike and got caught in a huge thunderstorm. I was soaked to the bone and more than a little unhappy, but in order to get somewhere reasonably dry, I started looking for the next closest road. I'd been hiking the park for years, but I had gotten all turned around and couldn't get my sense of position, no matter what I did. Bear in mind, you don't have to go too far in those hills to be completely surrounded by a lush, verdant, and isolating forest. That's where I was, and it was still raining. Came up along a fence and started to follow it. It brought me out to a road lined with houses in disrepair, yards overgrown, no people, no traffic, trees growing out of storm drains, utility poles falling over, and power lines disconnected and down. In retrospect, it looked like something out of The Walking Dead if the zombies stopped mowing yards. It took about 20 minutes to find the end of the street, where it terminated into a maintained area and then into a small town that I recognized. But that was a creepy 20 minutes. When I was a kid, we would go to my grandparents' summer camp on the Hudson River, a little upriver from Waterford and downriver from the GE plant. They had about 15 other families as neighbors, and all of us kids would ride bikes and play tag and occasionally go swimming. They'd been dumping PCBs in the river for a long time, with the blessing of the New York State government. So when they got caught, they were forced to buy up some of the land around the plant, which included the lot where my grandparents had set up camp every summer. They found another lot a little south of their original spot, and occasionally we would hike through the woods to the original spot, where once we had played and laughed and swam, it was dead. Even surrounded by trees and upstate New York wildlife, it was like some primordial vampire had leached the summer energy from all 16 cabins and trailers. It was spooky AF. One time I was hiking around Arkansas with my wife and lost track of time. We ended up being too late for a camp spot at our intended place, so we had to search for another one. Eventually, we found a sort of ranch where the owners often let campers stay that had nowhere else to go. So, it was all good. It was a bit crowded with other campers, so we had to ask these college-aged kids if we could camp next to them on their spot, and they agreed. The kids were nice and even helped with our tent, but kept us up later than we wanted because they were loud and getting wasted well into the night. Anyway, we wake up in the morning and I'm just eating breakfast and getting ready and stuff when, out of my eye, I noticed someone coming out of our neighbor's tent, but I didn't recognize her. It was a woman who was much older than the kids from last night, followed by her small daughter. The college kids from last night weren't there, but the actual stuff was the same. It was still their tent, their chairs, their car, and the same everything except for the people. It was really surreal. Everything was literally the same about our neighbors, except instead of them being 4 college kids, they had been replaced by an older family of 3. I was hiking with some friends in Colorado. It was a beautiful sunny day up until we were in the middle of the trail. Then it started pouring and we weren't especially prepared. Still though, a little tired, a little delirious from the night before, we trekked on. We hadn't seen another hiker in half an hour or so. But after a while, a couple of guys came the opposite way off the trail. They reassured us the cabin would reach us soon. Not sure what that meant, we kept going. After about an hour, we came upon a small cabin that looked ancient. We walked in. Inside, it was clear that this was from a very, very long time ago. Looking to the corner table, 2 children were eating bread and peanut butter. Next to them were presumably their parents speaking to a man with skin so wrinkled it looked like he had emerged from a decade spent in the bathtub. Nobody acknowledged our entrance. The moment I stepped in, I got a feeling like I was in purgatory or the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks. I turned around and saw a newspaper clipping attached to the door. A picture of this old man, the headline reading, 109 Native American tribe name can't recall, man loves to draw. After reading that, everyone exchanged weird looks and we left after 5 minutes, but what felt like days. Nothing really supernatural, but I still get the feeling of that cabin every once in a while, a year later. So my best friend and I are driving from Texas to Kansas City. We wanted to pick up some taco cabana for a friend in KC on the way back, so we wanted to find the closest one to KC. Google Maps says there's one on the way, just like 2 hours away from home. Score, right? Wrong. When we get close, it's near 2 a.m. We've been driving all day. We're tired. Google Maps tells us to get off the highway, so we do. It drives us through a small town. Christmas lights and banners hanging, street lights on, and everything at holiday levels of cheer. Apparently the place isn't in the town, which is kind of funky, but hey, fast food, Tex-Mex, we keep driving. The roads get dodgier and dodgier until Google Maps has us turn around down a literal dirt road. Another mile or so in, and Google Maps calmly says, "You've arrived at the destination." We are surrounded by trees on all sides. It is pitch black. It's getting foggier by the second. I turn the car around and get the f*** out. We can't cancel the Google navigation, but instead of saying rerouting, that cold robot voice just keeps repeating, "Turn back, turn back, turn back." I have to figure out how to get back on the highway, and it is made all the harder by the sudden death of the town. The lights are gone. The buildings are closed down and run down. Everything that had been alive 10 minutes ago was rubble and regret. My friend is losing it, thinking we have entered Silent Hill. I'm furiously driving, watching blankets of fog roll in behind us at every intersection. At last, I find the on-ramp and get back on the highway. Sometimes I want to go looking for that town. Most days, though, I am smarter than that.